here at Bob's, and I always like coming out here and taking a walk through the shop. Get to see something different every time. This is, I think, a 383 stroker motor. And as I walk through, looks like he's got a diesel of some sort here, and this is a step side. It looks like an International, if I'm not mistaken. What else have we got here? This is a knucklehead. It's a custom built bike. You can see it's got our Speed Gyms logo on, the official bike of Speed Gyms. Bob has built this over the years with different combinations of parts. You can see here, coming over here, we have a REO Speedwagon. That's where REO Speedwagon, I assume, got their name. And it's actually got a Cummins engine, 4-wheel drive, and it's just about complete. So Bob has got this built up, and I've seen this build happen over the years. Really interesting. This is a F1 49 that he's redoing the frame suspension. It's been chopped, and eventually it'll be built up with a 460 turbo engine. See what else we have here. I don't know what this is, but it's in progress. This is the machining area. So Bob's got the ability to machine whatever the car needs during a build, right at his fingertips. This is a welding area, more machining here. And then this is where Bob has his engine rebuilding area. So the focus of this area is building engines for whatever build. You can see he's got all kinds of equipment here to help in the build. Today we're going to look at a build that Bob has underway. Instead of just focusing on the engine transmission, we're going to introduce Bob, who's the founder of Speed Gyms, and he's the technical wizardry behind this stuff. And I'm going to have him explain kind of what he's doing, and we're going to have some future installments as the build occurs.
Well, like he says, instead of just showing, like we have in the past, all our other videos are mostly just showing you the installation of the engine, transmission, and the adapter. We're actually going to put the engine, transmission, adapter together and put it in a vehicle. So it's a little bit different. It's going to be, I don't know if we really decided to do this in installments where, you know, you can kind of follow along as we do it. I'm sure we'll be jumping a little bit, but every couple of weeks we'll throw up a new one and show you what we're up to on this. What we're doing here is, this truck came in with a small block Chevy. It was a real typical 350 with a 350 and a 9-inch in it. I mean, just literally a belly button hot rod. So what we're doing to it is the guy wanted more power. Here's the original engine over here that came out of this. That's what we took out of it. And we decided that we're going to keep it all Ford. So we're taking the Chevy out and doing something with it. We don't know what yet, but we're going to put in a 460 with a 6R80, Ford 6R80. And if you have seen our videos, you've seen we already did a video on the 6R80 install under the 460. So we're not actually going to cover hooking those two together because we've already got that. You can go back on the website and see that at any time. But that's the actual engine and transmission we're going to be putting into that F1. So here is the engine that's going in there. And the reason it's upside down is we're changing it over from a front sump to a rear sump. Anybody that's ever swapped a Ford to a Chevy knows what that can entail. Even though we're putting the rear sump on it, it's still going to have a low front by the oil pump. And that's going to interfere with, the steering rack is so high that here's the pan that's going to go onto that 460. You can see the low drop in the front. Well, where that has to be, it's going to be right on top of that rack. So, first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to cut the rack mounts off, drop the rack down, and get it out of our way while we do the engine install. Then we're going to put the rack back in afterwards. And it looks like, I don't know how many of you guys watching this are good with suspensions, but you see the drop on that, the links on the end? even with weight on it, those still go down at a pretty good angle. And that just tells me it's got bump steer. So when we put this back in lower, it's going to eliminate his bump steer also. And some of that, we're going to have to cut into the cross member here and clearance the cross member for this, because this is going to go down probably 3 inches. Now the other thing that is making this a problem for me is the people that built it. The old pickups all had this bolt-in section above the transmission. But you can see it's got all these nice screws in there, and I thought, well, cool, I'll just unscrew that and work with that. Well, you go inside the truck, and they've got the whole thing hush matted over, completely obscured. You can't even get at it. So it's going to take me hours to cut the hush mat out of there, find the screws, and take that section out of there. It's kind of turning into a much bigger project than we thought. But anyway, once we get the rack moved, the cross member modified, and be able to get into the tunnel there, then what we're going to do is, I was able to find a serpentine belt setup that let us locate everything right where it was on the Chevy. So it had the air compressor on the passenger side high, and then the power steering pump was a GM Saginaw style steering pump, and it was low. So I found one company that sold a serpentine belt setup that lets us locate those where they belong, so I'm not going to have to remake all the lines. That'll make it a lot easier. That's the transmission right here. This is the 6R80 that we're putting in, and it's got part of the adapter kit on it already. And if you look in the installation videos, you'll see us putting this transmission onto the engine. All right, now on this 6R80, some of the things we're going to use. The 6R80's got some unique cooler lines on the side of it. So there's a company that makes this little manifold for the cooler lines. There's actually a couple companies out now. I got this one from Bowler. So that's one of the things we're going to use to help get it into this vehicle. Another thing is the guy wants a nice big lumpy cam, so we got this comp cam thumper cam. And that's going into the motor right now that you saw upside down a minute ago. And some of the other things we're using is, and I'll show you all the stuff when we get it in. This is a B&M universal shifter that I'm going to adapt to that cable. It's a nice universal cable style that kind of looks like a 4-speed. It's kind of a cool setup. I'm glad they made that finally. And then of course we've got our transmission controller, US shift, quick shift. And I got that complete with the Holley throttle. It's a remote throttle position sensor, and it's made specifically for the Holley we're using on this. It's not a generic one, it's specific for the Holley we're using. And of course that comes with complete harness. And that's the alright, so we got all that. And we'll just keep working on this thing, and every couple of weeks hopefully we'll have an update for you, show you how we're doing.